So it's been a week and a half since I saw the Batman, for the first time at least. I've seen it again since, and admittedly, I've already seen it a third time. In fact, I've also already bought these. Thought they were really cool, so why not? So, welcome to my spoiler take on the Batman. I know this is late. I know I said I would do it sometime last week, but I kind of got too tired. I got too busy, and I really wanted to see this movie again before I really talked about spoilers in depth. And now that I have seen it three times now, wow, three times. I never usually did that. I never really did that even before there was a pandemic, but wow. But you know what? This movie really deserves it. It's really good. Please check it out if you have not. And if you have not seen if you have not seen the Batman yet, spoiler warning all across the board. I'm not gonna go by like play by play for the movie. I'm just gonna talk about like kind of the stuff I talked about in my previous video and some stuff that I basically couldn't talk about because obviously there's spoilers in this video. So what? So let's start with the actors. First off, Robert Pattinson. I remember like when he was cast, a lot of people were very upset about that. A lot of people were mad that it's like, oh, he's the Twilight guy. He's from the Twilight movies. Even Robert Pattinson hates Twilight, so give him that. And also in the years since, he's proven to be a really good actor. He was good in Good Time, good in The Lighthouse. I actually liked him in Tenet. So like when I heard he was cast in the Batman, I was like, that's interesting. But I know like other actors who have been cast as Batman. There was a lot of backlash. Like there was backlash against Michael Keaton, backlash against Ben Affleck. So it only makes sense that Robert Pattinson had backlash against him as well. But backlash was once again undeserved. He was phenomenal in this movie. And I kind of like this interesting angle that he has. It's like Batman as a drug, basically, and I kind of mentioned that we didn't really get to see too much of Bruce Wayne in this movie. And because it's year two of Batman, it does make sense to me because like now at this point in this universe of Batman, he's kind of like more focused on being the Batman, so he's not really being Bruce Wayne as much. So it does make a lot of sense there. Um, and I also kind of at first I kind of didn't like the makeup on his eyes. It kind of looked absolutely ridiculous. But then kind of like rewatching all the Batman movies again and kind of seeing all the other Batmen without like anything around their eyes, it just looks ridiculous. Like especially with someone like Christian Bale who looked absolutely ridiculous at times in Batman Begins especially. But I kind of like that in retrospect. And also I do like the narration. I do like the narration at the beginning and the end a bit. It is very noir-esque. The movie is very noir-esque throughout the entire movie. And it does work for what they're trying to do here. And I do like that Robert Pattinson as Batman, he doesn't really talk too much. As far as his Batman voice goes, it's good. I definitely say it's better than Christian Bale's. Um, it's definitely like dark and gritty and like rough. And like the difference between him and his Batman voice and him and his Bruce Wayne voice, it's definitely it's more subtle, I would say. Unlike someone like Christian Bale, who's like, "Well, I'm this party guy, and now I'm Batman." Like, it's definitely not like that at all. Like, at first I couldn't tell, but now I'm just like, I can definitely hear the difference now after a third time seeing this movie. And it just felt like there was a lot said with nothing. Like, you can definitely see that he's been through a lot. Like, again, this whole Batman thing is basically a drug to him, and he's just slowly losing it because of that. And also, this Batman it's a lot more violent than most of the other movies have been. And at first it's like I kind of thought that was interesting. Like he wants to, he says in the narration, he wants to strike fear into criminals basically. And I also basically like how he's really violent, especially in the beginning. Like you see him like go after those guys, that gang, which I kind of feel like I should talk about that. Like he goes after a gang who are protecting. He's going after a gang at one point who's about to attack an Asian man who was getting off the subway. A lot of people were kind of offended by that, and at first I was kind of apprehensive about it at first, but the scene makes sense because it's like, he's basically striking fear into the eyes of these criminals, and in the movie he's also striking fear in people he's trying to save. And throughout the movie he's kind of trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like, what am I doing? It's been 2 years. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? What's happening? And kind of like slowly realizes that he's kind of striking fear in everyone he comes across, not just the people he's trying to save, but not just people he's trying to like catch or stop, you know what I mean? But like the people that he's trying to save too. Like that was also really interesting to see as well. So kind of like by the end when, you know, you hear that guy on Riddler's team who's like, I'm vengeance, you know, because that's what Batman called himself. He kind of started to see like what he can really do. So like you know, he goes to that electrical wire. He basically stops it, electrocutes himself, and he's fine, of course, because he's Batman, and Batman survives everything. He even survives nuclear bombs. I'll talk about that in another video, probably. But you know, at the end, he starts saving people, like not trying to be violent, not trying to be scary or anything, but trying to be like a symbol of good. And that, like, the whole conversation he had with Selina at the end about that, again, it does work for the most part. I thought he was really good in this movie. I really want to see more of him, and I'm kind of intrigued now because I'll talk more about that later on, about what might happen in the sequel. So moving on. Now let's talk about Zoe Kravitz. They focus more on her as Selina than they do on her as Catwoman. I don't think they actually refer to her as Catwoman throughout this entire movie. And you don't really get to see too much of her. You do get to see her in bits and pieces. And the big thing in this movie is that Carmine Falcone is actually her father. Carmine Falcone, played by John Chatturo in this movie. I almost said John Turturro. Like, what the... I almost said John Toretto. Like it's a Fast and Furious movie or something. But John Chatturo plays her father in this movie. And that was a little surprising. Like, I knew that was kind of alluded to in the comics. And I felt like there was only a little bit of screen time with Zoe Kravitz. I felt like there really wasn't too much there. I honestly kind of got more out of Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises. But her relationship with Batman is very interesting. There's not really, like, any bad blood between them, but I just feel like, I don't know if she will come back, because at the end she just decides to leave Gotham, because, like, the city's just beyond saving at this point. And I kind of want to see more of her, even though I felt like I didn't get too much from her. I hope with a sequel maybe we can get more from her. But also, the relationship with Falcone, like, when I saw the movie at first and I kind of saw that twist where it's like, oh, he's actually my father, and then seeing it a second time and seeing some of the creepy things that Falcone does to her, I'm like, ugh, knowing what I know now, this is just disturbing. So, moving on to Paul Dano. Paul Dano really surprised me in this movie. I thought he was really good in this movie. Mainly in his opening scene where he doesn't really say anything, he's just menacing. He's just standing behind the mayor, and like the mayor's watching like the news, watching footage from the debate. And then he turns off the TV and the Riddler just comes in, just basically just beats him up. And I was terrified throughout that scene. That is one of the best villain introductions in a Batman movie since the Joker in The Dark Knight. That was incredible. And Paul Dano's performance in this movie is honestly terrifying. I'll say this again. I thought this was probably the best villain in a Batman movie since Heath Ledger. He was really good. And also, like, I thought, like, a lot of the scenes that he had, like the scene where, you know, he's talking to that the DA on the phone and he's trying to make him guess riddles while he has a bomb strapped to him. That was really intense. The scene in the prison when he's after the Riddler's captured, that was creepy, and he's singing like Ave Maria. That was really creepy. And like when he's just randomly screaming, I thought it was terrifying throughout the entire movie. And I also really like that anytime they kind of talk about Riddler, they kind of use Ave Maria throughout the entire movie. And mainly through his scenes. I thought it was very creepy. I thought it was very well done as well. They try to modernize him in a bit. Like, they kind of have him, like, talk about these things in live streams at times, apparently. And he has a large following, apparently. I don't know, it just kind of felt like a throwaway detail. And as far as his riddles go, I was honestly a bit mixed on them. Like, some of them I thought, okay, I didn't see that coming. And some where I'm just kind of waiting for them to say, like, you know, what the answer is. Like, the first one. You know, they get to the mayor's office. The clue is, like, what does a liar do when he's dead? And I immediately figured it out. But, like, Gordon and the other cops can't figure it out. And Batman's slowly figuring it out. And he goes, he lies still. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that. I was waiting a whole minute for you guys to figure it out. Glad you finally figured it out. And also the reveal with Bruce Wayne, like he was going after the Bruce Wayne at one point. At that point, I didn't know if you like knew he was Batman, but anyway, he goes after Bruce Wayne again. I waited a bit for them to figure it out. Gordon goes, "Oh no, his next target is Bruce Wayne," and then he sees Batman's gone, and we'll talk about that in a bit. His connection to Bruce is interesting. In the movie, it shows that they were both orphans, and Thomas Wayne, he was supposed to help orphans in the city before he was murdered, and everyone just turned their focus to Bruce Wayne. And again, I thought that was interesting. Again, I don't know if they'll bring him back for another movie. I feel like they shouldn't. It kind of implies that they could. There's a part of me that wants to see more Paul Dano as Riddler, but I also don't want to see more of him because I fear they're going to ruin his character even more. So, moving on. Colin Farrell as Penguin, or as they call him Oz, as he likes to be called Oz. His makeup is so good, I honestly couldn't tell that was him. And I was kind of worried it was going to be like one of those scenery-chewing performances like Danny DeVito in Batman Returns. But you know what? It's not. Surprisingly, it's not. He's actually very funny throughout the entire movie, like intentionally funny. Like when, after Batman and Gordon catch up to him in a car chase, he's like, "What, am I the only one who speaks Spanish around here?" or something like that. He's actually really funny in this movie, and at the end you kind of just see him kind of staring over the city. The city's flooded, of course, and I know they're going to do a series on him, which I don't know just quite yet. Kind of seeing how he officially rises, because in the movie he's basically just a sidekick, and he's in this 3-hour movie. He's in it enough. He doesn't overstay his welcome. He just has the right amount of scenes before he becomes annoying, I would say. It's not a big presence, but I would say it's not a big presence, but it's big enough for what it is. Now, other actors, Jeffrey Wright, I thought he had as Commissioner Gordon, I thought he had a good relationship with Batman. It was interesting. He kind of has a few quips every now and then, a few interesting moments with him, when they're going into the garage and they're trying to find something from the Riddler, and he goes, I've only known you 2 years and I still have no idea who you are. Or oh yeah, I forgot about that riddle. That was a dark one. You see with the mayor, they cut off his thumb, and the clue in the whole thing was drive. So they go into the car, Batman's really? And he pulls out a USB port with a thumb attached to it, and he goes, thumb drive. I laughed at that all 3 times. It was so dark, but I just thought it was so funny. Anyway, back to Commissioner Gordon. The scene where Batman hands him the USB port, and he's like, this dude's hilarious. I kind of want to see more of him. I felt like I didn't get too much of him, but I'm intrigued by what Jeffrey Wright will do. He's a good actor, so I'm hoping that they'll give him more in a sequel. There are other actors in this movie. Andy Serkis. At first, I thought he was kind of a major disappointment. It's he only had a few scenes as Batman, and not as Batman, as Batman's butler Alfred. And I thought it was there really wasn't too much there, and you can definitely tell that there's this strained relationship between him and Bruce throughout the entire movie. But then again, Bruce is just disconnected from reality at this point. So, and he knew about some of the shady stuff that Thomas Wayne did. And I'll talk about that later on. But I kind of like their relationship as I saw it again. Kind of seeing them kind of start to improve the relationship after, as I mentioned, when Riddler's going for Bruce Wayne, Alfred actually opens up the envelope that says, to the Batman, and it explodes all of a sudden. Alfred's basically out for the rest of the movie. And he apologizes for, hiding things from Bruce's father's past. And that's when they kind of start to make up. Hopefully they kind of do more with that in the future. As far as the other characters in this movie, John Chatturo as Carmine Falcone, didn't really do too much. Peter Skarsgård is the DA. He didn't really do much either. The only scene I liked of him is the scene at the funeral when he has the bomb strapped to his neck. He's kind of starting to panic. And he's like, I'm a dead man anyway. Other than that, I didn't think they were that interesting. Jamie Lawson, she's the mayoral candidate in Gotham, the new one. And I don't like her name. It's like Bella Real or something. And her slogan's real change. I'm like, Really? It just not subtle. Like, not subtle at all. And she also does the dumbest thing in the movie where it's the, it's election night, she wins, and basically that's when the Riddler's plan is starting to come together, the city's starting to flood and all that. And she, like, Commissioner Gordon's like, okay, we gotta get you out of here. We gotta get you out of here right now. And she's like, no, I gotta do this. I gotta go out there and alert everyone. And I'm like, you are just going to get hurt, aren't you? She does get shot. Thankfully, she lives. But I just saw that and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing. And again, maybe they'll make her character better in a sequel. But other than that, I just thought that was dumb. And then we gotta get to the not necessarily mid-credit scene. There's no mid-credit scene, there's no end-credit scene or whatever. But basically, it's a tease for the Batman 2. And Barry Keoghan plays this criminal who's also in the same jail as Riddler. And you don't see his face, you just hear his voice, you hear his laugh. It's implied that he's going to be the Joker. And, I'm intrigued by his voice more than anything. But I just kind of want to see how he actually looks in the role. But I thought his laugh was pretty terrifying as well. And I think that's going to be really interesting if they do go with Joker in the sequel. Even though we've had Joker so many times, I just think, it kind of should be interesting to see, like, how how Batman kind of, like, becomes less Batman and become more Bruce Wayne, and also at the same time trying to be a symbol for good instead of, like, striking fear into people while battling someone like Joker. That should be interesting. And as far as, like, the Thomas Wayne stuff goes, it does provide an interesting take on it, whereas, like, in all the other ones, like the Tim Burton Batman movie, or the Nolan Batman movies, Bruce's parents are always seen as good people, down-to-earth people. And in this one, it shows that they definitely do some shady things, mainly Thomas Wayne. How he basically hid the fact that his wife had so many mental problems, and also that he hired Falcone to kill someone. And that was the thing that Alfred was hiding. And it's very interesting to see, like, this darker... I think it's like, obviously all these Batman movies kind of get darker, but I felt like the darkness actually worked in this one more than any of the other ones. And anyway, moving on to, like, how it kind of blend, like, a lot of genres as well. Like, at times it feels like a film noir. Obviously it's a superhero movie. At times it also kind of felt like a horror movie. At times, like, there were so many scenes where it kind of felt like this is a shot basically right out of a horror movie. That was really interesting as well. Like, in some of the fight scenes, like the end, he just comes out of the smoke or whatever, and starts beating people up. And, like, that seems like a scene from a horror movie, for crying out loud. Or the scene with the subway again, the gang, that could be a scene from a horror movie as well. And as far as the action scenes go, some of them are really good. Again, the subway scene, the nightclub fights I thought were really good. Some of them were really funny. Like, he has the baseball bat, and some guy's about to shoot him, but Batman throws the baseball bat, and it actually hits the guy with the gun. That I thought was really funny. I laughed at that all 3 times as well. And the car chase between the Batman and the Penguin, also really good as well. The fight during the ending scene was also really good. As far as, like, some of my favorite scenes, I really liked the opening with Riddler. That was terrifying. I never was a big Riddler fan again, but I felt like that scene alone was just insane. That was just crazy, and it just set the tone for the movie perfectly. The opening with Batman, I thought that was really good, like, with his, his narration. And again, the subway fight, I thought that was really good, despite some problematic things in it. And his first, like, scene with all the first crime investigation of the movie, when he's going with the rest of the police department to the mayor, he was dead. And basically that was also really good to kind of see, like, the kid, the mayor's kid, who's, like, obviously answering questions, but Batman kind of sees a connection because, like, hey, we both lost our parents at a young age. The funeral scene, I thought that was really good. Also, Batman, like, afterwards, like, he's talking to the cops, and, like, he ends up punching Gordon and tries to escape, but, like, Gordon knows, like, Gordon knows that, like, he doesn't actually mean it, of course. But that was also a really good scene. Also, like, his first flight after, like, escaping the cops, that was really cool. Even though I thought there was a really dumb moment when the parachute comes out and he hits him. He gets knocked out because of that. Not knocked out, but, like, he gets badly injured from that. Like, he can't really walk for bits. Like, oh, next thing is fine. Whatever. Anyway, what else? Um, the Thomas Wayne reveal I also really liked. Alfred and Bruce's relationship, while rocky at first, I also thought like by the end it's like, okay, I'm intrigued now. Moving on, the final battle I thought was really good, and like the henchman, calling himself Vengeance because that's what Batman called himself at the beginning of the movie. It does work. I feel like, because he was like trying to be again, he was trying to be this symbol of fear, and now he's trying to be a symbol of good by the end, realizing that vengeance just means nothing. And also the Riddler and Joker scene and the final scene. Selina is about to leave, but Batman tries to dissuade her, but she still leaves. They kind of go off their separate ways. I don't know if Selina Kyle will come back. I kind of want her to, only because like I kind of want to see more of her. I felt like her character wasn't fully developed enough as a character. So what's next? Again, I kind of want to see Batman kind of try to balance this whole good and thing, this doing good thing for good instead of like being bad for good reasons. Um, it's I also really want to, and also kind of like the idea of Joker kind of like being there while Batman's doing that. That should be interesting. Although I heard rumors that it's going to be Two-Face in the next movie, which if it's Two-Face and Joker in the next movie, it's just basically going to be the Dark Knight again. I kind of don't want that. I kind of want this movie to be its own thing. It really worked for being its own thing. And, I kind of want to see more of Riddler. I kind of want to see more Selina. I don't know if I want to see more Penguin, only because he's going to get his own show. And I kind of want to see more of Bruce's relationship with Alfred, Batman's relationship with Gordon. Maybe we can get a little more about both of them. But it doesn't matter. I still really enjoyed this movie. I saw it 3 times. I'm going to buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray. If I could see it a 4th time in a premium format like IMAX, I would, but I just don't have the time. So, I would say this is probably the best movie you could get from a Batman movie. Like, this is probably the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight, and I'm gonna die on that. I'm gonna say this is the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight. I don't think that unless Batman 2 is better than this, that's the only way I could see that. But I don't know. Also, it also kind of felt like, personally, it kind of felt like this was trying to be like the ultimate Batman movie. Like, it was trying to be like, if there's never another Batman movie again, this is the one we get. And it kind of feels that way at times. Like, it feels like there's a sort of finality to it, but it's not, because obviously we have that big reveal at the end with the Joker and all that. So I don't know. It just kind of felt like the way mainly because of the way they said things, after Batman's caught, no, after Batman's caught, after Riddler's caught, and they go to Riddler's apartment, and he sees all the clues about him being Batman and all that, and Batman just goes, "This may be the end," and Gordon goes, "Of it all," or whatever, and Batman goes, "No," to the Batman, and it kind of felt like this movie's trying to be like the film feels like it's trying to be like all 3 movies in a trilogy, it feels like, and yet it's only the first movie in a trilogy, probably. So, I don't know just quite yet. Also, it's kind of like confused at first, like, why would he send a bomb to Bruce Wayne if he knew Bruce Wayne was Batman? It kind of just, it doesn't make a total amount of sense to me, but again, most of my problems in this movie are mostly just nitpicks. Again, like plot holes, which I try not to make fun of because, I feel like all movies have plot holes. So if I make fun of one movie for plot holes, I gotta make fun of all movies for plot holes. They're just inevitable. So for the most part, I really enjoyed this movie. Best Batman movie in a while. Best Batman movie since The Dark Knight. And hopefully we can only just go up from here. So, what did you think of the Batman? I know feel like I'm rambling on at this point. What did you think of it? Also, what do you want to see from another Batman movie? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.